dementia. We were losing him. His personality was disappearing. He didn't recognize it anymore. He had face blindness. He was fumbling and dropping things. Couldn't walk correctly. Couldn't remember things. Didn't know who he was talking to on the telephone. And couldn't do up shirt buttons. Couldn't do zippers up anymore. And he often put 2 shirts on, that sort of thing. He had to be supervised getting dressed. The depressing thing was that his body was very, very sound. Doctors had assured him at 85 years old he had perfect triglycerides, cholesterol, sugar levels, the whole thing. Nothing wrong with him physically whatsoever, but they never mentioned his obvious dementia, where he just couldn't remember faces, names and things, and was completely losing track of time. He was getting up in the middle of the night every couple of hours wondering what to do next. He didn't have the good sense to even stay in bed if it was dark. He was told this numerous times, and he still got out of bed even though it was dark. So that's how confused he was with dementia. This happens to a lot of people, millions of people, millions and millions of people, and it's a tragedy of, you know, Holocaust proportions. It's a silent Holocaust. We all accept it as natural and normal. We can't do much about it. There's no cure for it. Now that's what the big pharma controlled media would have you believe. We've been told the last 20-30 years that amyloid plaques are the chemical enemies we have to beat. We have to defeat them at a molecular level, and we have to wait for a patented miracle drug from big pharma. Well, it turns out it's completely false. Got some news for you now. My father's dementia is being slowly reversed with a very simple food. 4 tablespoons of coconut oil daily is the recommended dose, coming from Dr. Mary Newport, who discovered this in about 2007. It's still not widely known. She wrote a book about it. It'll be linked below this video. But she reversed it in her husband, and I'm reversing it in my dad, who's 85 years old. Now, after 26 days, he's on the coconut oil on only 3 teaspoons daily, because it's a laxative in some people, and he can only take a small amount, but he's still coming out of his dementia slowly and progressively in a very praiseworthy fashion. He can now understand the time and read the time and understand the time, which is, he was actually written off, if you know what I mean. We let him go. This is natural. We have to let him go. It's a slow goodbye. It's a slow death, a kind of living death that reduced us all to tears. But at least now he's telling the time, which is a major leap forward for somebody with senile dementia to be reversing their symptoms. He's also now more conversationally active. He's got far more energy for chatting and talking, and after years and years of silence when visitors come, it's just been noticed at about 35 days he suddenly started talking and chatting amiably to visitors. So that's a pretty good reversal in someone's supposedly irreversible symptoms at age 85, isn't it? Now, there's more to this coconut oil than you think. I'll tell you how it works first. Coconut oil is a unique food in the sense that it goes straight to your liver regardless of what else you've eaten, and it's turned into a blizzard of ketones, which are, wait for it, an alternative fuel for your brain cells and muscle cells. Now, it turns out, there's a Rhode Island study, will be linked below this video, that dementia has been reclassified as type 3 diabetes. It's diabetes of the brain only. And because it was noticed that dementia often responds to diabetes medications. Now, if you don't know what diabetes is, there is a type 1 diabetes, where your pancreas stops making insulin altogether. The more common epidemic type 2 diabetes, connected to obesity, is where your insulin sort of half works, doesn't work. It's got to be tuned up and improved with medications, lifelong medications, according to big pharma. Now, diabetes is the failure of blood sugar to get into the cells of the brain and the muscles and power the cells in your tissues to do the normal work they do. Now, It's a wonderful accident of nature that coconut oil provides these ketones, which are an alternative fuel for muscles and brains. And my father, 1 teaspoonful of coconut oil, he began talking unexpectedly on the same day. So that's something you can do on anyone who's under functioning, lacking in energy. A tablespoonful of coconut oil can make a hell of a difference to them in just 24 hours. They sleep better straight away. Now, of course, I had to test it on myself, and I discovered to my utter surprise that it gave me increased stamina and physical strength carrying bricks, you see, because I am building a house at the moment, and I have to do a lot of brick carrying, moving half a ton or a ton of bricks from one place to another because I don't have enough room. And I noticed 2 things: increased strength and stamina carrying bricks, decidedly less fatigue, seemingly no fatigue on 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. The following day I noticed another amazing benefit. I didn't have any muscular aches and pains, which I normally have when I do a sudden spike of hard physical work. Normally I'm laid up for a couple of days with aching joints and muscles. Well, I don't get it anymore if I'm on coconut oil, you see. That's a wonderful discovery that you probably wouldn't make unless someone tells you, such as in this video, because it's not a typical Western food, far from it. It's a very unusual food, and you wouldn't think to even go and try coconut oil, would you, unless someone tells you. So, now, with the Rhode Island study, where they have very boldly taken the step to steer our thinking away from Alzheimer's dementia being an unbeatable disease, whereas in fact it's just another type of diabetes occurring solely in the brain, and there's an alternative fuel available, namely coconut oil, becoming ketones in your liver. It causes one to speculate, because it's already been proven effective on some people's Parkinson's disease. So many of the diseases that we have different names to, like Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, which is a motor neurone disease, Parkinson's disease, they all seem to respond at least partially to this coconut oil. So maybe they're all variations of diabetes of the brain. Perhaps the diabetes is patchy in some people's brains. One area works, the other area doesn't. So, which lays open the other big question too. Are the burgeoning developmental difficulties we see in people growing more and more and more, autism, are they just parts of the brain not flowering because they're starved of glucose during a critical period of development? There's been some benefits reported by parents of autistic kids, improved behaviour. So it's worth looking at for this. And coconut oil may be a very simple remedy you can get in an ethnic food shop or your local supermarket. Typically you'll be buying it in the Asian cooking section of your supermarket. In Sydney it's definitely not amongst all the cooking oils. Okay, I'll say it again. Coconut oil is not in the cooking oil section of Sydney's supermarkets. It may be the same in your area. It's not amongst the safflower oil, the cornflower oil, and the canola and all that stuff, and the olive oil. It's not amongst those. It's a solid fat at room temperature. It becomes a liquid 5 degrees warmer, clear liquid very quickly, and it's normally found amongst noodles and Asian cooking fats and lards in another section of the supermarket. Now, probably the cheapest place to buy it would be an ethnic food shop in your area. And thanks to multiculturalism, we're all mixed up today, and Sydney's very lucky. We have 150 nationalities here and 150 restaurants and ethnic food shops. So there's plenty of places to go out and get very, very cheap coconut oil to do a very cheap experiment on yourself and people close to you. Now, how important is this to you? I was so surprised that it gave me increased physical strength, because I'd been reading up on its brain effects, you see. I was wondering if it would improve my sleep, concentration, peace of mind, or anything like that. Now, Is this good news? Is this bad news? Well, it's so convincing. A few people have tried it. Already the Pentagon is interested in feeding coconut juice to US soldiers. Okay, coconut oil may become standard combat rations. Now, there is someone else called Dr. Veach who's already produced a very cheap liquid drink that produces 10 times more ketones than coconut oil as soon as you consume it. And the reason it hasn't taken off and landed on the TV and been put into all the health food drinks yet is that it's so cheap you can't make a profit selling it, so nobody will produce it. It's been tested on mice, it's been tested on people, but it's only been made in small quantities so far. But I think we can trust the US military to bring out a ration pack or something, or some kind of health food tablets using the ketone principle of the alternative fuel for combat soldiers to be physically stronger, have greater physical stamina and less fatigue in combat. So we can almost guarantee, this is a done deal, the Pentagon will be spending millions to develop this food. And from the military, things normally flow into the commercial circles. So one day it's likely we're going to see ketone formulas mimicking coconut oil in Coca-Cola soft drinks, energy drinks, etc. So you can look forward to that. But meanwhile, you'll have to put up with nature's own cure, which is simple coconut oil, readily available, cheaply available, and giving you almost instant results on the day you purchase it. You'll get some change. Now, I put a link below this video to the effect that British Olympians and footballers are already taking coconut oil because they know it improves their strength and stamina doing sports, physical activities. Now, that's quite an endorsement, isn't it? The link is below this video. Apparently, it's been used sort of semi-secretly by weightlifters for years. I must confess I never knew that. But I've certainly confirmed it accidentally and utterly objectively by myself, been able to carry a ton of bricks, with literally 1,000 kilos of bricks, without having any aching pain side effects the following day. It truly surprised me, and I recommend it to you. If you're not carrying bricks, and who's doing that, it's unusual, you take coconut oil and probably within 20-30 minutes you'll find you can run upstairs quicker. You will notice an improvement in your leg strength. Okay? Improvement in your leg strength going upstairs. You will notice that. That's a good indicator that the coconut oil is working on you, providing an alternative fuel to your muscles. If you just think about it, a lot of people today complain of fatigue and lack of rest. They just can't get enough rest. Rest doesn't work for them. They don't get refreshing sleep. Bad sleep is a common problem. Now, it goes like this. This is kind of fascinating. Biochemical individuality. Myself and my mother, if we take too much of this coconut oil, it relaxes us so much we both fall asleep. So we have to lower the dose. Does that surprise you? That something that gives you energy would actually calm you down. So it's not like being pumped up with adrenaline following a drink of coffee. It's nothing like a boost like that. It's quite dissimilar. And I'll tell you how differently it affects myself, and you might write something under the video how it affects you when you've got some from a cheap island shop, cheap ethnic food shop. What coconut oil does for me is that I have it on my cornflakes in the morning. It vanquishes hunger and thirst for about 6 to 7, maybe 8 hours. And all day I spend, I have the attitude that I'm surrounded by food everywhere I go, takeaway food bars and stuff like that. And guess what? It's put me off eating. Suddenly I realise that I've been eating way too much. Coconut oil is a much easier thing to do. And my father's been saying the same thing, that he feels full all the time, and really he's eating way too much food. Way too much food, my dad is saying. Telling my mother it's too many cornflakes, too much bread, don't give me this, don't give me that. My father's lowering his food intake on 3 teaspoons of oil, this coconut oil right now. I'm doing the same thing. You suddenly realise that you're basically eating for social reasons. People are saying, have one of these, have a piece of that, you have a drink of this. So Coconut oil actually puts you off food. You just don't need it because you have greater stamina, you're more interested in what you're actually doing. Activities rather than running from activities by eating and drinking as a diversion, because you really don't want to do the activities, okay? So it changes your attitude toward activities on a daily basis. That's my personal experience and my dad's experience. Now, my sister, she's been only on it for 2 weeks. She's tubby and she's lost 2.6 kilos. How about that? Is that worth looking at? Coconut oil is reputed to cause weight loss in some people. It's worth an experiment if you're suffering, if you're part of the obesity epidemic. It's an alternative energy, and you can do a lot more work with ketones in you rather than carbohydrates. So, how's that for an announcement for you? Now, what can you do with all this information? Well, do this cheap $5 experiment. That's what it cost me in Sydney. $5 for a little jar of coconut oil. Start the experiment on your good self. Tell other people about what you're doing. Mention it to a few other people. Talk to senior people. It's also reputed to improve arthritis because coconut oil has anti-inflammatory properties. It also kills bacteria. It contains caprylic acid, which kills intestinal fungus called candida, candidiasis, which often comes after you have had antibiotics in your system for, say, a couple of weeks. You can have a white milk called candidiasis growing all over your tongue, and it goes right through your body. Now, coconut oil kills it quick smart. Okay, so it's a good way of keeping down candida growth, keeping your candida at the correct level. You do need to have some candida in you. Now, I can't help being a little bit cynical here. Some things people just realise resources. Businesses certainly look for opportunities and realise resources wherever they are and exploit them. It's natural. It's the way business operates. But it could be said cynically that dementia not having a cure in the mainstream media, not having any kind of remedy, keeps the dementia farms going. And by that I mean the dementia farms are aged care homes where people are given up as lost, they're beyond help, they are put into a home to be cared for until they physically die, and a byproduct of that is that you can put 30 medications per day into each dementia patient. So it's not too far a stretch to call aged care homes dementia farms. And I do suspect that maybe that's one of the reasons Big Pharma hasn't been too energetic at finding a cure for dementia, because by not curing it, you can pump 30 drugs per day into each dementia patient. So it would be a growing market, but it would bankrupt our society, bankrupt our medical systems, if we just let people naturally progress into dementia when a simple food can reverse it in most people. Okay, so you can do your little bit against Big Pharma. Take some of their profits away by not letting your precious relatives into these aged care homes. You may even be able to get them out of an aged care home. Half the medications they're on are probably not necessary. That's something you have to decide yourself. But coconut oil is an experiment you can put in somebody's tea while you're talking to them. You can visit them, put a teaspoonful into a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and swill it down. You don't notice it. It doesn't have a strong coconut taste. It's barely has any taste whatsoever. So there's an experiment you can do with anyone who's feeling a bit ill, lacking in energy, lacking in motivation, that sort of thing. So is that a handful for you? Is that a mouthful for you? Have I hit you with enough information in this video yet?